conspiracy theory. You had all of this stuff. Like you had Roswell, which was again something like a conspiracy theorist who believed JFK was killed by the mafia. They weren't really interested in little green men. You've seen that blade over now because, I guess I should say, of sites like Gaia, like YouTube. You have these communities that build up and they kind of have a shared interest. But before, like if you thought Ronald William Reagan was the Antichrist because each of his names had 6 letters in it, you probably didn't believe in Bigfoot. Right, like that was your main focus. And that's actually an interesting question. I wonder what the Venn diagram is of fundamentalist religious people who believe the world's going to end, in this apocalyptic war between heaven and hell and, beating up angels, and who believe in other paranormal stuff. Because like my mom, for example, she believes in the Bible, but she doesn't believe in ghosts. She doesn't believe in Bigfoot. She doesn't believe in any of that stuff. So, yeah, but there's stuff in the Bible. I mean, according to the Mormons, Bigfoot might have been in the Bible. There's stuff in the Bible that's weirder than anything we've talked about on the show. Hey, Charlotte, thanks for joining us here.
Can you remember any of that? Of course I can. There was a
Fenelene saying that and responding to Jonathan, people who used to be rational atheists are now wholesale into conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories make sense of the nonsense the universe puts out that's super attractive. And what's super weird that I've noticed is people who are extreme will fly across the political spectrum. It does not matter what the beliefs are. I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen personally. People who are extreme to the right, as things change and as they're perceiving information differently, they'll become super like leftist, and they'll do that for a period of time, and then they'll swap back, or it's weird. There's no in between. They know very rarely they go, I'm going to be moderate. So someone who is like atheist, someone who's like one of those people, and I don't know if these are your friends, Finley, but there are people who kind of like that's their identity, that they're atheist, not that they're a banker who has 3 kids and a nice home, and they just happen to also not believe God exists. People whose identity is wrapped up in a belief are far more likely to just go way over here. A lot of QAnon people started off as hippies, started off from that New Age movement. That's that same age group. It's the boomers. It's that same age group. They've gone from being like, oh, maybe it's weird. If you go to that, because I've talked about it on the show, that QAnonymous. Jonathan, thank you so much for the donation. I'll put this down and we'll get you in that Carpenter Copter ASAP. When you go to that QAnon Casualties website that I talked about, that subreddit, so many of the people go, my mom used to be like a hippie. She used to have her own garden, and she didn't eat genetically modified stuff, and now she believes that John F. Kennedy Jr. is still alive. It's the weirdest thing. So you do see these big jumps back and forth. It's odd.
If you get a cockroach and you cut its head off,
sorry, I'm just catching up here on these notes here.
That's still got its head.
Just the guy says more likely to believe in conspiracy stuff than a lot of people I know because I'm religious. I think that does open it. It does open that up. If you're secular, if you don't believe in any religion, I mean, the atheist is kind of you will have people that flip flop, but I mean, if someone didn't believe in the eternal war between good and evil, you'd have a really hard time convincing them. You'd have a really hard time convincing them that Hillary Clinton's eating babies. You'd be like, that's a huge stretch, because then you're like, no, it's this demonic chemical called adrenochrome, and you're like, what? So it does help. It does help to have, and I'm getting you back in the helicopter as well, helicopter as well, Rudy. Thank you again for those donations. It does help to have that background, but it could also not be the best ones.
Yeah, just a primitive nervous system that can,
Tickus, thank you for joining us. Exilus, thank you for joining us as well. Yeah, I got to look in. I think it'd be interesting to take a look at the. I think it'd be interesting to take a look at that Venn diagram between religion and how weird the beliefs get. I think that would be pretty interesting there. But it's not wholesale though either. I'm wondering how much of it they would actually believe in aliens as well.
Yeah, but.
Because that's always been the concern. If aliens showed up tomorrow, what would it do to...
as a kid. Now they've got PlayStation 2 and the difference in 10 years.
What would it do to religion? Now, Rudy Jazz just posted... They went to a dark outpost on stream last night. David Zublik looks ill. David Zublik is the host of Dark Out. I checked him out probably a week or two ago as well. Yeah, I mean, he has some telltale signs that he has some issues. Yeah, he does. He has the red nose. He has the really kind of reddish, when all the blood vessels break in your nose type of look. He also reports bizarre content that can't. He's in some dark corners. David Zublik is in some really weird dark corners of the internet, and I think mentally as well. Like, I wish him the best. I wish he would stop reporting just nonsense. I had to stop watching him because some of this coverage he was doing was inappropriate. I felt like there is a line that you can draw when you're covering Pizzagate stuff, when you're covering child trafficking.
We've got another one to come.
I can't wait.
He went too far. I think I discussed this on the Patreon Discord. I don't think I've ever discussed it here, so I might as well throw it out now. He will use images in his photo montages that are not images that I don't think should be used. I don't think they should be used, and I definitely don't want to see them. Because if he's doing a story about child trafficking, he'll take a photo of a girl in a Halloween costume and be like, look at this, it's just it's just in a gross, you know what I mean? He's sexualizing children. I'll just come out and say it. Sometimes when he's trying to do these Pizzagate stories, his thumbnail will be a child dressed in a very provocative or sexualized way. When I'm saying child, I'm not saying 16-year-old. No, super young. And it's gross. It's gross because you have to wonder, is he doing that because this is the age victim of these Pizzagate people, or is he doing that because he knows it's going to get more clicks? And it's the second one. And that's gross. I stopped going to it. He put up a thumbnail. I think it was Super Bowl. You go Super Bowl, there's more child trafficking during Super Bowl, which I've heard is accurate. There's more. I don't know necessarily child trafficking, but whenever you have these big global events, you have tons of people coming out. Thank you so much for the donation, Church Going Mule. Really appreciate that.
So you need to log on.
He used a photo of a young girl, and she was wearing a football jersey, but it was I don't have any. My gauge for that stuff is so low. I don't want to see nothing. She even wearing a parka and mittens, putting that photo of that unwilling girl. This is a photo that he got offline and attached it to a story about child sex trafficking. Wearing what she was wearing, it was wrong. It was wrong. And I see him doing. I was like, nah. And I didn't stop going to his website for the longest time. And it was just the other day when I went back. Don't do that. That actually is hurting the girl in the photo, right? And it's hurting your message. You lost a viewer. I mean, I was always making fun of it, but I was still clicking on his stuff. But yeah, and I've noticed that not only there are a lot of people who investigate stuff like Pizzagate that want to help children, and that's why they're doing it. But they also have that big bust. I didn't cover it on the show because again, it was disgusting. But they had a big bust late last year on Reddit. Shocker, right? Reddit is such a cesspool. On Reddit, one of the leading Pizzagate QAnon subreddits, their mod. I mean, again, this isn't surprising anyone because, again, Reddit is a cesspool, but their mod was busted for downloading child. And the whole subreddit was to exposing the pedophile elite.
So she reads it and she thinks, well, that's not right.
That's the type of weirdos you get going on.
What do you mean?
Not all of them. There are a lot of people. There are people who put their lives in danger trying to stop this stuff. They may be doing it on their own. Hats off to them. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for the donation. Yeah, it's just creepy. That's what Jonathan was saying. It's creepy, and it's like that is something that I think that everyone believes in, to not be putting kids in harm's way unless you're a creepo. But you can be creepo adjacent, and that's where I don't want to see him be. Definitely don't want to see him be. The Masonic Quads Church-going Mule donated $33.33, and Jonathan called that out as Masonic Quads.
It's great, and it's really good in the snow.
Right. It gets through a lot of nail.
You know, it'll be interesting. Rudy says, I feel bad for Zublik, though. He's never getting out of the rabbit hole. It's weird because you never know. He could have a total turnaround, and again, we see these people fly from one into the other. Not everyone. There are people who, I have a buddy who, ever since he was in high school, diehard socialist. Yeah, he's my age, and he's still like, he's never stopped being that. And there are people who just say, we're just like patriot all the way. You know, remember, you don't always have these shifts, but if you have someone on an extreme side, they very rarely go to the middle. It's the same thing. Like, I think I saw this on Bill Maher's documentary Religulous, but which I saw when it came out. I was like, oh, this is the best documentary ever, dude. Because, you know, I'm religious, but you can make fun of it. We can have this discussion. I watched it again a couple years ago, and I was like, it doesn't hold up that well. But I think it was Bill Maher who said, isn't it weird that whenever you have a Satan worshiper who leaves the church, he always becomes a fundamentalist Baptist? They never go from it. You never hear about a Satan worshiper who becomes Episcopalian or a Satan worshiper who becomes Mormon. It's always from one extreme to the other. Jason, this is from Jonathan. Jonathan's donation here. Jason, have you heard of that photog, Jordan Matter, who only takes images of gross contortionist? And I have not heard of Jordan Matter. No.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So
no. And you know, the thing is, and everything he does seems really suspicious. Yeah.
That is actually an advantage.
I would guess so. I would guess so.
Right, okay.
And this is one of those things where you start. The other day I was looking at that. Remember the gymnast, that Gary Nasser? I think it was Larry Nasser. And he sexually abused all those gymnasts. I don't want to talk about this much longer, but to answer that question, he had that horrible thing. And in an Olympic-sanctioned training center where you have all these professionals from around the world, people who are coming out to give their experience and their passion to these young children and make them better athletes, in a place that highly regulated, that had been open for years and years and years, and they were winning these Olympic medals, and these young women were becoming stars. In a place like that, you had a pedophile who operated for a decade or more. So, do I think in some guy's studio,
let's think of some then, shall we?
Some studio where he's taking these pictures, is something bad happening? Like legally, I can't say anything, right? I don't know the dude. But if in a highly regulated place like a church or a school, stuff happens, do I think these photographers could be doing this stuff for sicko reasons? Absolutely. And it'd be a lot easier to get away with it. And then you got to start thinking about those parents and all that stuff. And awful.
What, you were hoping that would be a spin-off feature?
Is there actually it's another form of do we need them?
Yeah, there was I was going to do a follow-up to it, but the problem was it was just a video. Remember that episode I did a long time ago that I think it was in Wisconsin. There was the house that the neighbors were saying people were being trafficked out of, and they called the police. And the police showed up, and like people were leaving the house, and then the house burned down, and the cops are like, "Well, sorry, there's no evidence there." That was a long time ago. I did that episode. I recently came across the video on Twitter. I think I retweeted it. It's a video from that house, and the video shows, again, we don't have the context, but the video shows a mob of people surrounding the house yelling, and there are uniformed police officers escorting children out of the house into a van, and then after that, it burns down.
I've had a great time.
So were they taking them into custody? Or were they taking them to the next client? Like, it's questions like that always make you go,
just think of what he's gone through in his life.
What's really going on? Right? We all know that this type of gross stuff, and again, I do want to stop talking about it. I hate this topic, and that's why I don't talk about it on the show. We do know this stuff happens between families and neighbors and stuff like that. It's unfortunately common. And then when you make these allegations of these high-level groups that are doing it,
That's not the show we got free from the BBC, is it?
people go, well, no. Sure, it'll happen in your neighborhood. It'll happen with, like, the lunch lady or the neighbor or the dad or whatever. But there's no way that it's happening on a federal level, even though they're constantly breaking up these rings, right? It seems to be one every 20 years. You find this huge ring that's operating out of D.C. or operating out of some other major city, and they shut it down, and a couple people go to jail, and it quickly gets brushed away. We know this is happening at the high level, and it just is. People don't stop becoming sickos because they become more sick. They become more sick. But yeah, let's take a look here. Let's see if there's any questions that aren't going to make me talk about such disgusting topics. Yeah, I don't. Corey Dennis said they just Googled Jordan Matter, and now they feel like they're on a watch list. They're like, don't read off my name. So I do not recommend Googling that. I wasn't going to. There will be times people give me suggestions like that. And again, Jonathan, thank you for the suggestion, but I'm just like, I don't want to put that stuff in my head, let alone have it on my computer. So yeah, Jordan Matter. Yeah, and you know the thing is, he could probably. You know what? I'm done. I'm done talking about this stuff. It really grosses me out. But yeah, I hope you guys understand. And that, like, I'll leave stuff out at certain times on the show. I try not to go into too deep detail when we talk about some things, but. Yeah, pretty gross.
We've got to wrap it up.
Come on then.
Let's see here.
In the supermarket at the fruit and veg counter. That was banana drama.
Churchgoing Mule has an interesting comment. He goes, people can barely tell the difference between a dog and a coyote footprint. Could a normal person tell the difference between a bear and a Bigfoot footprint? And I'd say no. Like, I could probably... Well, I think because Bigfoot, it supposedly looks like a human foot, but it's so easily faked. Bigfoot prints are easily faked. You could go out and make one today. It's so funny because growing up, I thought Bigfoot was super lame. I really did think Bigfoot was super lame. It's not until I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, where he's everywhere. Literally, you go to Taco Bell and he's ordering food for you. But all the other stuff Bigfoot can do. Teleport, dimensional travel, things like that. That's what I'm into. Mamu Mocho asks if I can get my autograph. There is a way to get my autograph. If you join the Patreon, you get a letter from me. I'm sure I'll do autographs at some point. It would seem self-indulgent to just mail out an autograph. But yeah, if you join the Patreon, you get one of these fancy-dancy Carpenter Copter pilot stickers, and here it says monkeys. You don't get the hard drive. You don't get my backup. These are all my episodes. I got a couple hard drives that are just episodes of Dead Rap Radio, but yeah. Well, hey Amalia, we'll get autographs at some point. We'll figure it out at some point. Let's see here. And Mamu Mocha, thank you. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Kill Yeadon fan since episode 200 and still loving it. Really, really appreciate that. It's funny because at a certain point I do think like those episodes, like I'll look up an episode and I'm like, what, I recorded that as like episode 169. It's weird to think there's so many episodes. Allison's happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Rudy, yes, you can send me chocolate. I'm on a different type of keto now. I just don't eat a lot of carbs at all. It's not working. It's not working. I need to go back onto keto. Allison, thank you so much too for the donation as well. Asking to be my girlfriend. You've listened to every episode. That it would take more than listening to every episode to be my girlfriend, unfortunately. But you do seem like a great person. You did give me $5, so you seem like a great person. No, but thank you. I'm glad that you are a fan. But yeah, what were we talking about? Sorry, I didn't expect to get a relationship proposal. Oh yeah, keto. Now I gotta figure out something. Because since I came back from vacation, I swear, like, if I come in contact with a piece of dough, I automatically put on a couple of pounds. Sephora Ari asked, has I done an episode about hypnosis? I did. It's actually one of those episodes that was pretty eye-opening for me. But then it also, Sephora goes on to say that they found some weird PSA commercials. Yeah, send them over to me that are warning about human trafficking, hypnosis. That's interesting. That episode of hypnosis, like, I always thought it was just a goofy parlor trick. And the episode was, no, it's not. the one thing I took away from that episode was it's so fascinating. You cannot use this is actually what they treat people, because I just thought it was a joke. I thought hypnosis was made up. I thought even the people who knew hypnosis, they knew it was made up. Apparently, you cannot treat something via hypnosis what you couldn't treat them in real life. So if I don't know how to get someone to stop smoking, I cannot hypnotize them and get them to stop smoking. If I do know how to get someone to stop smoking, I can use hypnotism as a tool. But yeah, that was a creepy episode. I don't remember which episode that was, but like people were dying, people were going crazy. Not while I was making the episode, but the stories in the episode, they were pretty dark. They were pretty dark. Let's see here. Yeah, Corey Dennis saying it thought Bigfoot was pretty lame. Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway from that, right? Let's see here. Sayla says the Airbus crash. I'm not familiar with that. That's a plane crash in New Zealand. It's funny how much of my day is just copying, pasting stuff into Google and being like, oh, that sounds weird. Mount Erebus disaster. Oh, a plane crashed into a mountain. Did they eat each other? I'm curious. Yeah, the disasters. I like covering disasters, actually. I don't do many of them. Nuclear Glue said they are walking through the forest thinking about the podcast and appreciate that. How nothing creepy happens in their area, and then they found a QR code taped to a tree. I think QR codes are a conspiracy theory in and of themselves, but did you scan it? That would be pretty interesting. Cantillions, happy Thanksgiving, Gerardo. Happy Thanksgiving. Cantillions question, do you think the Nephilim, strange creatures that are normally seen during a drug trip, and paranormal beings may be connected somehow? That's a super interesting question, honestly. And I think that kind of goes to a thing like, how much do you think this stuff is incorrect? I think there is like this idea of this Venn diagram, right, where you have, you guys know what the diagram is. I don't know why I do that, but let's say we have religious entities like demons and jinn, angels, all this stuff up here. Down here you have ghosts. And over here you might have something that's more corporeal, like a goblin or a ghoul or things like that. And I think that I drew these bubbles pretty connected, but I don't think they are. I think that demons are really never confused with imps or ghouls or goblins or anything like that. A vampire may have some demonic aspect to it. They may, or a witch may be, worshiping Satan. But I would say, here's my first. I know, because when I do episodes, sometimes I'll have kind of endings that kind of flip on a conspiracy cap. So sometimes it can become blurry what I actually think. But I think for the most part, all of these entities have their own individual agendas. I don't even think a demon and a jinn are necessarily related. I think that would be a fallen angel versus the smokeless fire. I think they're two different entities, and I would say the Clockwork Elves from a DMT trip are completely different than the gremlins who were taking stuff apart during World War II. So I would say that they might be connected in the sense that they're not of our world, but I don't think the Nephilim, the Clockwork Elves, or the Standard Ghosts, I don't think they have much in common other than the fact that they all interact with. That's just my theory. Because if you thought that they were all just one thing, like if the aliens who land and the Nephilim and all these other things were connected, all their agendas always seem to be different. Just the guy, thank you so much for the donation. Once again, another request to be my girlfriend. I will not be able to be your girlfriend. Wait, you wanted to be my girlfriend. The point, guy friend. I read that wrong. We can have a platonic guy friendship, whether or not you donate money for that one. But no, I appreciate that. And then you will get a ride in the Carbonocopter, and then Helena. I'm so bad with names. I was right. Luis emailed me later after that first episode came out and goes, hey, dude, that's not how you pronounce my name. You got it right the second time. And I was like, that's what I thought. Helena. We're going to hit you in the Carbonocopter as well, and that appears to be some sort of dancing lemon. That's pretty adorable. Blowing me kisses. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get any getting kisses blown at me during those other proposals. That might be the difference. T-Matt asks, what do I think of mediums and psychics? I think most since Fenoline's thing was my first reaction to the plane crashes was did they eat each other? T-Matt, I think most of them are frauds. I do believe that there are mediums and psychics, and I do believe because I'll talk about like feeling people's energy, and I've mentioned in shows I can walk into a house and tell you how good your marriage is. So I do believe in that on a certain level, but I think most of the people who are charging money for it, most of them are frauds. Not all of them. Not all of them. It's one of those things, like if you might actually have a gift at being a contractor, and you may have like a gift of leadership, getting all these people organized to build this house, but you can also just be really bad at it and just kind of be lazy and have some connections, and you're also a contractor. You also have the licensing and all this stuff, but you're not any good at it. But I guess that's different because at the end of the day, there's still some houses built. But I think mediums and psychics, they really can be rip-offs. They definitely can be rip-offs. Hunter, thank you. I'm glad that you have been enjoying the show. I'm glad that it's keeping you going. It's funny because Rudy Jazz they're also from Switzerland. They are also complaining that it was not super spooky up there. And you get that a lot. I see, we've had a couple comments here saying that it's not spooky enough. It's finding it. It really is finding those weird paths to go down and all of that stuff. But they're there somewhere. I do need to send out more Patreon stickers as well. Jonathan was mentioning that. Yeah, Cantillians, I thought QR codes are a conspiracy because this is the problem. This is actually a good idea of conspiracy theories, is that I don't know what I don't know. When I look at a QR code, I think I've banned them from my house. Like, see, when I run them out with a pitchfork, I literally don't have any QR codes in here. I look at that and I go, how can that code be so randomized that they'll never run out of variations? That's impossible. Like, you can scan a QR code and it'll go doo-doo-doo, and it'll be like crush orange soda. And I'm like, what? How do they have that figured out? How do they have that figured out? So I just have an issue with QR codes in general. I think they're a lie. But again, I also have a hard time believing that records work the way they do. I don't understand how you can take a piece of wax and melt bumps in it and then put a needle on it and it sings. I don't understand how that works. And even if it does work, apparently, according to science, how is it that I'm making records at a factory and I'm making Bruno Mars albums, and then one day I get an album from this new singer named Tabitha or whatever, what are you telling me that in all the times we've made albums, we haven't had the same dots in the same place? How come it sounds different when Tabitha's? So here's the thing, I don't know how records are made, and I could easily look up and see how they're made, but the little bumps. So how is Tabitha's album in the year 3000? This is in the future now. How is that? Isn't there a chance that eventually you run out of space, you run out of different bumps? You run out. There's only so many bumps you can put on a record. Now, you can say, Jason, you obviously know nothing about how records are made. It's not like that. It's like this. How does it go? Does the sound go into? Jason, you're making it sound like it's the Hellraiser box. It's just a piece of wax that has little bumps on it, but does the sound go in it? Acta Rockefeller Pompidou has said they're my biggest fan, and they asked if they could be my accountant. Probably not. I have no money to account for it. I've made some money today, but the IRS probably would hope that I would get an accountant. Let's see. Jonathan, Jason, what do you think about the idea that broadcast television manipulates the color aspects to control your mind? I don't know about that. I have heard there's actually a conspiracy theory I heard back when I was in college doing journalism courses. They say televisions are designed when you first buy a television set, I think it's different now with the energy saver thing on it, but when you buy a television set and the colors are scaled way high up to make everything look like a cartoon, because people don't want to watch reality. When they watch the news, when they watch sports, they want it to watch really colorful things because it looks unreal. It's just like a subtle thing. And then also another thing we learned in that journalism school was that news program, like the nightly news, is designed to be a family. That's why you normally have a man and a woman as the host, and then you'll have like a sister and two brothers. It'll be like the sports guy, the weather girl, and then the other dude who's just doing like local interest stuff. They go, and this was back, I was in college in the 90s. They said they have tried having two male anchors at night, and they've tried having two women anchors at night. They've even tried having three anchors at night, like a man and two women. They go, it never does as well as when you have a man and a woman, and then you have a mixture of the people on the site. They go, race did not matter. Race didn't matter at all, but they said it's a family thing. It simulates a family. So much of television is simulating friends and family. I come home, one of the first things I do is turn on YouTube, just so there is noise in the house as I'm kind of putting around, taking off my jacket and all of that stuff. So yeah, television does a lot. Television does a lot. There was that one episode I did where the guy said, television meant tell a vision. And it was talking about how it was, and I go, well, it used to be called radio, bro. Like, you do this for radio, do this for, like, you can always pick one word and fiddle around with it. But before television, there was radio, and people, radio. What? That doesn't even make sense. Let's see here. Rudy Jess says, I'm surprised people haven't come up with more conspiracy theories about gender dysphoria, aside from their turning the children trans. That is another one that, you know, that's an interesting one, whether or not the conspiracy theories pop up on that. Because you're right, you don't have big ones outside of stuff like that, like, you know, like the reading library, or maybe even Alex Jones about the chemical in the water. You don't get a lot about that. I think conspiracy theorists, that's another Venn diagram. It's what sells and what scares. If we're talking about conspiracy theorists, because there are a lot of conspiracy theorists, people honestly believe the nonsense they're saying. I don't think Hans is running a grift. I think Hans actually believes monkeys don't exist. I really, really do. So, but there are other people who are just looking for the next big thing, like the Travis Scott thing. I remember I got a couple comments, I don't know if it was on my TikTok or on my YouTube, saying that I was exploiting the Travis Scott tragedy, and I was like, I didn't respond to any of that, but I thought, not really. I mean, one, it wasn't this huge video for me. I do videos like that all the time, but I wanted to get in on the ground floor just because I figured it was going to get wacky. It got wackier than I thought. People started talking about that stuff in the mainstream news. It's been going on for a while. Let's see here. And then I wanted to give a shout out. I know I'm falling behind here, but Salih Grasanin, thank you so much for that donation. Yes, and they were mentioning the CERN